And joining me now is Lori Turnbull, our political analyst at Dalhousie University. Lori, thanks as always for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's looking more, and I can't say official, but it's looking more and more like Mark Carney is indeed interested in the job.
Right. And as you mentioned, we've been talking about this, speculating about this for a long time. And again, even back to when Bill Morneau left cabinet, there was speculation then that Justin Trudeau was talking to Carney about potentially coming in and that creating awkwardness for Morneau and everything else. And so now we seem to be at a point that it's not just speculation, that Carney is making calls. He is trying to figure out what kind of support he would have in caucus. And so it's interesting because at this point, as you say, Trudeau still hasn't quit yet. Like, we're not at a point of certainty, and we certainly don't know how the mechanics, if he does resign, we don't know exactly how the party is going to get from Trudeau as leader to somebody else as a leader who would represent the party in the next election. But we are starting to see a bit more certainty around who is interested in the job, Carney being one of them. And it's interesting to think about the people who are thinking about putting their hat into the ring for something that looks like is going to be a losing project in the next election, right? Like, not to be a jerk about it, but I mean, are you running to be prime minister? Are you running to be a third party leader? Like, what do you think is actually going to happen? Those who are looking at this job.
And some people may see that as a challenge. With Carney, though, how much is this like Michael Ignatieff? And how much is it different?
Right. I mean, people have made that comparison, and I think, honestly, it's a fair one. You look at somebody who has been extremely successful in another aspect of life, right? Like for Ignatieff, it was writing, it was academics. He was an extremely, impressive, highly credentialed person who had huge impact in his life in another field, in another category. And when he tried his hand at politics, it did not go well. And so I think there's perhaps a fear for some people that Carney would represent a similar type of thing, that he has shown, in how to be incredibly successful and impressive in his life as a banker. He, as an economist, he was the Bank of Canada governor, the Bank of England governor. He's obviously an extremely impressive person. I think he comes to the table with the kind of credentials that could be incredibly helpful at a time where we're going to have to think about what a new economic strategy would look like, given our changing relationship with the United States. Because of his global networks, he could be the right kind of person to interact with the Donald Trump and the people around him. But at the same time, as far as I know, he's never run for office. This is a world that he would be new to. And again, does he want to come in and be a third place party leader? Like, really? I assume if he does this, it's because he wants to be prime minister. Mm-hmm. Does he want to build this project up from the ground again if the next election doesn't go well for them?
Well, that's the thing. And he's turning 60 this year. I mean, the Liberals could be a two-term project. I mean, it looks like they won't win the next election. And then who knows what would happen in the one after that. So he could be here for another 6 to 8 years to try and rebuild. That's a big challenge.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this isn't something that you're going to be walking into. And even to compare it to Justin Trudeau, he took this thing over when the party was down to 34 seats. That was after, 2 years after Michael Ignatieff had that result in the 2011 election, when that was the worst that things ever had been for the Liberals. Justin Trudeau took the party over in 2013. Massive project. But he was looking at a general election 2 years later, when he then, transformed the thing and took it into a 184-seat majority. But at this point, it's like the tail end of that story, where whoever comes in now, the party is, if the polls are right at all, on its way out. And I don't think, with all respect to whoever might take this thing over, I don't think that there's a person who's going to completely transform the circumstances where they're all of a sudden going to come first, right? And so, as you say, this is going to be a 6-year project, an 8-year project, at least a 4-year project. And is that what Carney or any of these people want to sign up for at this point?
And just one last question before we go. The Liberal caucus is meeting. Are we going to hear anything from the Prime Minister? Do you think this week there was talk? We've heard that he was going to announce his resignation this weekend. Do you think we will hear from him before the caucus meeting on Wednesday?
I think that it would be sensible. I don't know why he would let these caucus meetings happen. and then what walk into them? Like there's the regional caucuses are going to be meeting Monday and Tuesday, and then the general caucus meeting that's scheduled for Wednesday is 6 hours. So this is not like an information session, right? Like this is not somebody's going to, Brenda Shanahan's going to make an announcement and take a couple of questions and that's it. This is a huge meeting where people are going to be coming to, whether a physical or a virtual microphone, asking questions about what are we going to do if he doesn't leave, right? Like that pressure that the MPs are putting is getting worse and worse by the day. And if it gets to the point of this 6-hour conversation with the entire Liberal caucus, I think that's going to be awful for Trudeau. If he's going to walk away, why not do it before then? So then those conversations turn into something that's more forward-looking about who the next person might be and how they get there, as opposed to trying to figure out ways to make it more difficult for Trudeau to stay.
Okay, Lori, always appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Roger. Take care.